This is the infamous White Room. I cannot get past this room.
So, let's get this review started.
Breakdown, for all its flaws, is one of those games that's in a mixed bag. I cannot really say anything bad about it, aside from a few things, but there's also plenty of good about it. It's one of those games that's ambitious, and almost succeeds in being so. Let's take a look at it. First of all, the gameplay. The gameplay is the most mixed bag in all of this, as a matter of fact. The controls are very clunky, the AI is unfair, the gameplay itself is quite fun. It's trying to be immersive, which is what I think it was meant to be, but there are also elements of it that I also think came from RPG-like things. The powers, for example, I get the feeling that they were trying to enhance the powers, which would have been great, but unfortunately didn't pan out. There's a nice variety of enemies which we see, from the basic Talan warriors to the Talan brutes, and they're all very fun to fight at times. The thing is that due to the controls and the unresponsiveness of the controls, it's very hard to fight them when you first get started. When you start getting powers and so on, then it starts to get a little easier. But then it just goes to this unexpected difficulty leap with the controls and the AI mixed together. It's not unplayable, you just have to have a very good amount of patience to play this game. That's how complicated the gameplay is. You do get guns, but unfortunately the guns are actually one of the weakest things in the game, as a matter of fact. You need to unload half a clip of an MP5 into a soldier, and that's one of the worst things. Guns are meant to be one of the best things in some form of video games. From Call of Duty to Halo, they're all practically necessary. In this, they are not necessary. As a matter of fact, they are one of the things that are very situational, and you can only really use once or twice to actually get a grip of them. There are grenades, but they're useless. As you can see, I only really used one or two throughout my entire playthrough. The rocket launcher is only really there for one purpose. Well, two purposes. One is to fight that goddamn tank, the other is to fight that goddamn helicopter, which are both equally frustrating to fight against. Still going on to the gameplay, the AI is probably one of the most unfair things that I have ever seen in my life. I mean, I have played The Surge, and that's actually a very good Dark Souls style game. I've never played Dark Souls, but I've liked The Surge because of how I've always had this kind of this sci-fi kind of niche in my mind. I've always liked sci-fi. Fantasy, not so much. Sci-fi, perfect. More realistic. So when we look at this game, I get the feeling that it's trying to be some kind of Dark Souls clone before Dark Souls. But it just doesn't work due to plenty of things. There's no upgrading system, there's no point allocation system, and that's the problem with it. With those kinds of things, this game could be great, but it's not. And that's one of the problems. Another problem is how bland the levels are. Now, not saying that the levels aren't particularly bad. They are very well crafted. Some of them just look a little samier than others, while others just have this nice open-end thing. But the problem is the open-end thing makes it feel like it's going to be a thriller, not an action game, which is what it's trying to be. A thriller game compared to an action game is not really a good thing. PUBG is a good example of this. It's a thriller game because it's putting you on edge to find out what is there. It works because you know that there's other people there. You know that they are trying to kill you, but you don't know where they are. With Breakdown, it feels more of an action game than a thriller game. Granted, the open corridors and stuff like that make it feel something like Die Hard, but it just doesn't feel Die Hard enough, if that makes any kind of sense. You don't feel a certain kind of threat half the time when you're walking about the place. After a certain length of time, you realize that, oh, there's just going to be one section of enemies here, not going to be a problem. Or there's going to be another section of enemies here, not going to be a problem. And they also telegraph where they're going to be, so that also takes away from the thriller aspect. Moving on to the story is the probably weakest element of it, but it's also pretty good. The main character, Derek Cole, doesn't really talk much, but when he does talk, you are given the option of deciding what he says. But this is where the RPG element comes in again. I really think that this game was planned to be an RPG, but there are parts of it that doesn't feel like it. I mean, parts of it do, but parts of it don't, and that's one of the things. Alice gets the most character development, and when it's there, it actually sounds pretty good. I'm also really impressed with the time travel aspect of the story, but there's a part at the ending that really confuses me. In this game, there is something called the pendulum effect. When one person gets swung to the past or present, the pendulum effect starts to kick in after a while, and they get sent back to their original place. So at the ending, which I have seen, Derek jumps into the pendulum effect. So does that mean he's going to go there, then back? That's a pretty odd question. But this comes into another aspect of it. Does it divulge into an alternate timeline? We may never know. But this also makes me feel like there was planned to be a Breakdown 2, which I will admit I was actually pretty interested in. But this doesn't look like, but given how long it's been, it hasn't been so far in the making. Mirror's Edge is probably the best equivalent to Breakdown. Now we are left with the main part of this whole thing, the rating. What are we going to rate it as? Well, I'd say a 6.9. Let me tell you the reasons why. The controls and the AI are all clunky. I can't get over that simple fact. They are all very clunky, and I can't really focus on any real good aspect of it. But the fact is that it actually improves the game half the time because it adds a difficulty spike in it, making the game that little bit more interesting. I mean, if certain parts were to be fixed of it, that would be a lot better. But overall, that's my final verdict. 6.9. So with that, I will see you guys later, and look forward to seeing you on Doom and Star Wars Republic Commando.